Welcome to another episode of Writing Inspiration with Marky Books. I'm your host, Dan Ricoberry, and our guest for this week, Syntell Smith. So, how are you feeling, Syntell?
I'm doing fine this afternoon. Thank you very much for having me.
That's great. So tell me, Syntell, since when are you a writer?
I've been published now for 5 years. I published my first book in 2019. But overall, as a writer, I feel I've been writing for I would say since the early 2000s, around 2004, 2005. I really took it seriously as a career. I did blogging for most of my early stuff in the beginning, and got into screenwriting, and eventually thought of Call Numbers as my first TV show project. And I pitched it early to a couple entertainers in the field back in New York, and got some good input on it. And then I put it on the shelf for a little while to concentrate on other things. Then I brought it back up again around 2016 and decided to change it up into an actual series of novels. And the rest is history.
I can see that you started before, but I assume that you used the pandemic to change your status to a real professional?
Yes. Even though I'm not published in the traditional sense, I do feel that I am, and a professional author, based on the work that I've actually put out.
Well, for concept, basically, to be a professional author is to have win at least some money for your work. From that moment, you are a professional.
Right. I can't really say I've turned a profit because I've spent money more than I've made money, but I have made money from my books so far. It's just that, I'm not exactly in the black yet. I'm still in the red. I'm spending more money than I'm actually earning money. But,
that's the struggle.
Yes, that's the struggle. It may take a couple of years before I'm actually, at that level where it's actually a profit. But for now, I'm willing to learn.
So tell me, Syntell, do you have an author or inspiration that motivates you, or there was another reason you decided to become a writer?
I think it was something that was always in me. I just needed an outlet, a following, which I actually got when I was blogging back in 2004 and everything like that. I had a dedicated following of readers that was always looking forward to my post when I was a blogger, and that sort of helped me develop my audience a little bit, trying to write for what people are expecting from me. And I just took it from there. And as long as someone was actually reading whatever I was writing, it pushed me to continue on and put my work out there.
What was your focus when you were a blogger?
Just to, entertainment wise, I would pretty much tell stories about my random, life, that things were happening at the time. Single person living in New York, going through some stuff here and there.
Right. I understand. So, what was the most difficult thing you struggled at the start?
Definitely trying to go the traditional route. I tried to get represented by an agent, and I queried over 140 different agents looking for that right one that could represent me and my work. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. So, I was actually stuck on what to do next and just decided, I'm just going to skip the whole traditional route altogether and self-publish. Once I got over that hump, everything else was
easier.
Yeah, easier. It's pretty much like a learning experience.
I see. How's your writing experience these days? How do you feel with yourself as a writer?
It's doing all right now. I'm working on 5 different stories all at once, pretty much one for each day of the week.
Wow, that's impressive. Isn't that too much? I have heard people told me that if you write, that they don't recommend writing more than one book at a time because the ideas will mix and can, be complicated.
Well, these are like real drastically different books. So, there's no way any of the ideas could actually mix or anything like that. I'm doing one that's like sci-fi, the other one is fantasy, the other one is like supernatural romance, and one is like, the next book in my series. So, all those characters and stories are very drastic and, there's no chance of any of them mixing up or anything like that. But the trick is to actually stay focused and, work on each project each day, before you fall behind. And, you can always take a break every now and then. You really need that discipline that keeps you there behind the keyboard writing something. You don't have to write like, a certain amount of words each day. Anything from like, a paragraph to just like, a simple line, as long as you're there working on something each day of the week.
I see. Wow, that's very good advice. I barely manage one book at a time, so it's quite impressive. Do you feel you changed as a person since you started as a professional writer?
I think I've changed a little bit here and there. I can actually appreciate what other writers are going through now, having gone through the experience myself. And, when I actually pick up a book these days, I appreciate it more because I know the work that goes through putting everything together, everything from the cover to like, the story, the formatting inside the book, all that really, puts it in a bit of a perspective once you've done it yourself.
Yeah, I actually think similar about that. It does make you think when you actually struggle with it, especially in editing.
Yes.
Did you have like a particular time where you were like in a slump? And what did you do to get over it?
Yeah, there have been several times where, the whole process slows down a little bit and you get a little distracted or get aggravated or frustrated. You don't know what to write next. You pretty much write yourself into a corner or you just develop writer's block.
Oh.
It happens. I basically always, when I'm like, hit with one of those like slowdowns or whatever, I always try to like, think outside the box, probably move on to like another project or, come up with like a new idea and develop it, then circle around back to what I was originally working on, with a different perspective.
Do you have an advice for people struggling with that or new writers that are too scared to try?
The advice I always said being approached by new writers is to stick to your guns. Don't try to conform for anybody. Find your audience. Don't let the audience make what you're trying to write. Don't conform for the audience. I mean, there are some people that like to actually write for a certain target audience. If that's what your aim is, if you're trying to go mainstream and write what's popular now, especially in like young adults or like, new adult, anything that's like, people are reading now, whether it's like about vampires, revolutions or whatever, you can write to that audience because that's what everybody's reading now. But I always feel like, that's someone else's story, right? But, you feel is something that maybe you haven't seen out there, right? Something that like, makes you stand out that you don't believe anybody else has ever done before and be the first one to, put it out there.
Yeah, I have heard people talking about that they feel that their stories feel exactly the same as others. But it's never like that because, there are hundreds of vampire romance out there, but none of them are the same.
Right. They don't stand out.
It's better to be selfish in this. You just do what you want and their audience that you need will come.
Right.
And it's impossible to please anyone. That's the error many of the companies these days make, trying to please every target, but it's impossible.
Right.
It
It
won't
is.
happen ever.
It
And
really is.
and if you make a product that it's pleasing everybody, it's going to be the dullest ever.
It'll be boring.
Exactly. Sometimes you have to press some boundaries to get something interesting.
Yes.
So, tell me, for what you said, you don't have like a specific book genre that you work with.
I just feel it's like all literary contemporary. I do dabble in some sci-fi that I have in the works now, but everything I've written and put out there so far, with these three books of the first series and this first standalone coming out in November, it's basically just a story for adults
Mm-hmm.
that deals with like real life situations, and it's just contemporary at the moment. If I do try to like branch out in sci-fi and fantasy and stuff like that, it'll be a little grounded because, I don't have that much of an imagination to think about like spells and like secret powers and stuff like that. But it'll still,
Yeah, I was struggling with making a makeup language for my book too.
yeah, stuff like that, I really can't like.
So I just wrote in spells in Latin, and I said that in editing I'll change that. So tell me a bit about what you're writing right now.
Like I said, I'm doing 5 different stories at once.
Mm-hmm.
I have my first standalone coming out in November, Red Eye, which is pretty much a romantic story about a couple that's been married for like 10 years, and a whole bunch of weird circumstances happen that like pretty much test the couple. And that happens in a marriage, things get routine or whatever like that. But the two characters, I think they're so unique because before, like around 5 years into their relationship, they were both big. They were both like, morbidly obese, and now through different methods. One had weight loss surgery, and the other one actually lost the weight naturally. They're both now very attractive looking. So they're not used to all the attention they're receiving now because, inside there's still that big person in their heads. So
Well,
they go through a bit of.
I will say that the person that loses naturally is more disciplined than the other, so I guess he did change
Yes.
a bit more.
Yeah. So they go through a series of events that like test them. And in the end, depending on, when you read it, the story brings them together a little bit. And at the end, they overcome their problem, but it brings them together stronger than before. I think it's a good story. I think people will be able to relate to it and hopefully, draw people into more of my writing.
And actually, I heard that people recommend the selling series or bundles instead of single books. They said that it sells better.
There's always that, and that's why I did both. I came out with the first 3 books of my call number series first, and the very first book, the introduction of the series, did do very well. The second book also did well and won awards. So now, once you start winning book awards, you start to get noticed more. And I think the third book also is a good stopping point for the series right now until I get ready for the next part, which will probably come out in 2 years, maybe 3 from now. But I want to also come out with these standalones to show that I could write something different. I don't want to be known as just the one genre person or whatever. I don't want to be known as the library guy. I could write about other things other than the library.
So in October, you'll release Red Eye and the other 4?
Right. The standalone comes out in November, but I got different events around in my area of Southeast Michigan that I'm doing, a couple of vendor shows in August 3rd and the 10th. those first 2 Saturdays. And then I'm doing another event in October. And then I have 2 events in November once the book is coming out. So, I'm trying to get myself out there. I'm trying to get on a regular schedule where I'm doing book events almost every other month, mostly in the spring, because kind of doing them in the winter, unless it's indoors, is kind of hard. Most of the events I do are usually outdoors in a parking lot or in a church or, somewhere in a big hall where, people could get to you, see that you're selling books, and, do what they want.
I see. So for the book, The Red Eye, what did inspire you to create it? Maybe it's like a personal experience, etc.
Red Eye actually came to me when I first heard a song.
Oh.
I was inspired by the song. I heard it the first time and I just started listening to it over and over again on a loop, nonstop, a whole half hour or something like that. And then all of a sudden I just got this story in my head, of a couple being tested. If you actually listen to the song that it's inspired by, which is also called Red Eye, it's a great song by the artist Kid Cudi that features Haim, Haim, the Three Sisters. It's a great song. They really came together for this outstanding collaboration. And, once I heard the song, the story just came to me. And it took a couple of years to finally finish it because originally it started as one of those NaNoWriMo projects where you try to write a novel for 30 days in November. I thought I could write the whole story in 30 days.
No.
Couldn't do it, but I tried, and eventually, the 30 days came and went, and then, I put the project aside and concentrated on other things, then came back and finally finished it. So that was the inspiration for Red Eye. A song. Inspiration comes to you, in the weirdest places. A song, a movie, anything.
It happens to me similar. I stopped working on a book on February of last year and restarted on Jan of this one. And I actually finished it last week.
Oh, congratulations.
It took me 6 months, 520 pages.
All right.
So tell me, what's the next book after Red Eye that you're going to publish?
The one after Red Eye will probably come out in 2 years, and it depends on which of the 5 stories I'm working on now will be finished first. I have a feeling, I'm just putting it out there, that it'll probably be the supernatural romance that I'm working on. A person. Yes, the Witching Hour, which is about the 2 agents, working for a secret government company that unlock a conspiracy that's about to happen. That looks like it might be first. It might either be the Witching Hour, or it might be one of the story of Nick Lazarus. Really depending on those 2. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. That's great. I remember a bit when we talked about the Witching Hour.
Yeah, it really, my first time getting into fantasy and stuff like this, because, a lot of times, when it comes to fantasy and supernatural stuff, it's always white people. And I'm thinking, I could try to mix, a little bit of diversity in my story. So I made these characters. Yes, I made these 2 characters Mexican. Just, for the story to stand out. Because, you don't really hear anything about Mexicans doing anything supernatural. Especially in, movies or anything like that. So I really tried to focus on that.
Yeah, I do get it. It's fine to get some diversity. Actually, I'm a bit worried because in the series I'm working, I have probably every race in a prominent role, but I didn't make an Asian character. I fear that they say I hate Asians.
I know some people don't know how to write them correctly and don't want to stereotypical.
Oh no, it's not that it's not that I don't feel I can't. It's just that it didn't enter my head when I create the original cast.
Or,
It's simple.
right.
Especially because
That
I created like an island close to California, a fictional island, and it's connected to cultures of Russia, Mexico, United States, things close, and it didn't. Actually, thinking about it, I should have made Japanese. They were on those seas at that time. Hmm. Oh well, I'll think about it. So, Syntell, tell me, you mentioned it that you were going to an event on August. Is there any other event that you're planning to go where people can, say hi or meet you or get a sign?
Those two are the only ones at the moment. Like I said, I have a third one in October that I'm finalizing also, and also the holiday one in November. But I don't want to give out the details yet because it hasn't been finalized. But definitely the two events in August are definitely set in stone.
Perfect.
They're in Southeast Michigan, Allen Park and Madison Heights. If you checked any of my Facebook pages, I posted several posts about them. I also mentioned them on Twitter a couple of times. Very easy to get to, if you're in the area.
Of course. So tell me, Syntell, I have a question. What social media do you usually use so people can learn about your movements?
Definitely Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Syntell Smith. Facebook is Syntell.Smith. I'm also on Instagram under JetBlack927. That's my Instagram for there. I don't really post too much on there every now and then, but I'm mostly active on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit about the pages you use to sell your books digitally?
I'm definitely on Amazon, Ingram Spark, also locally around here in Southeast Michigan in several libraries and private bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, also on eBay. They're pretty much out there in all the regular local outlets.
That's great. Thank you very much for coming, Syntell. It was a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's hope we can talk more, maybe after Red Eye comes out.
In November. I wouldn't mind coming back here again and talking about it.
That's excellent. Thanks for watching Writing Inspiration with Marky Books.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, Syntell. Bye.